Changes. Turn and face the strange. Changes. Don't wanna be a richer man. Changes. Turn and face the strange. Changes.
Hey, welcome to Half the Battle. You know, we finally made it through the first 10 issues of the original G.I. Joe comic.
These issues followed the adventures of the original members of the Joe team. All that is about to change though, as we hit issue 11, the Pipeline Ploy. We're through with dealing with just the original members of the Joe team, as issue 11 reminds us that this series does exist to sell new toys. So, in one issue alone, we're gonna be seeing a ton of new characters and vehicles to reflect that.
Will having to shoehorn in a bunch of new toys ruin the plot? Let's find out.
The cover shows us 4 new toys that somebody who's only ever read the comics and isn't interested in the action figures wouldn't recognize. So we're off to a great start here. Though, I have to admit, the cover is action-packed and somewhat intriguing. I mean, who are these people? What the hell is going on? The comic itself starts with Wild Bill, Snowjob, and Doc heading towards their new unit, the G.I. Joe team. That's under heavy Cobra fire at the moment. Not just from troops, but also from his tanks. Wild Bill is flying a Huey helicopter here, not his traditional Dragonfly. This makes sense, as he's on a mission to deliver and pick up personnel and equipment, including the Polar Battle Bear, something the Dragonfly isn't really suited for. Kudos to the comic for using a correct type of helicopter here. The chopper comes in and begins to literally take old familiar faces off the front line and replace them with brand new troops.
Subtle.
Here's also where we're introduced to Gung Ho, and lampshades are hung as Rock and Roll observes that they're in freaking Alaska, while Gung Ho is running around bare-chested just so people could see his giant Marines tattoo. And also because that's what the toy looks like. Cobra is screwing around with the Alaskan oil pipeline, but the Joes don't quite know in what way or why they're doing it. Upon the arrival of the Joe reinforcements, the Cobra forces vacate the combat zone, giving us time to get to know the new guys a little better.
Very little, I'm afraid.
The information we get is pretty basic. Gung Ho is Cajun, and Doc, shockingly enough, is the new medic. Doc tries to check Snake Eyes' head for frostbite, but the ninja explains that he'd rather not have his mask taken off, using the only means of communication he has, namely his gun. You know, Doc's lucky he just pointed it at him instead of shooting it as usual. Snowjob also tells Rock and Roll that Gung Ho's sister is a fashion model. We switch to Cobra headquarters, where the commander is displeased the Joe team got wind of Cobra's operation so fast. So he's sending in a new specialist to be his field commander. We don't get to see his face, but judging from his hands, it can only be one person. Dr. Claw! The Joes track Cobra to a nearby pumping station, where they're unloading strange steel containers. The bulk of their forces are moving on from the station though, so the Joes are forced to split the party. Just then, Dr. Claw arrives on the scene.
Oh, will you cut it out with this Dr. Claw crap? It's quite clearly Destro.
I don't know that. This is my first time reading this.
It's Destro. He's even on the cover of the trade paperback you're reading.
Anyway, our mysterious new character has a plan.
I'll be in my room.
Meanwhile, the Joes attack the pumping station, but in the fight, the mysterious canisters break, and the Cobra goons inform them they contain the deadly new toxin. They'll all be dead in 6 hours, and Dr. Claw has the only antidote. Even worse, a few of the canisters have already been emptied into the pipeline. Before they get a chance to ponder this unfortunate turn of events, they come under attack from an enemy RPG team. It's quickly decided that Doc, Snake Eyes, and Snowjob will take the Battle Bear, yet another new toy for this issue, to track down the antidote. Also, and Snake Eyes, Do me a favor and neutralize that RPG on your way out.
Sure, Hawk, no problem. Hey, you want anything else while he's at it? Get some takeout, maybe? Yeah, I said this before, but Hawk is a douche.
And sure enough, in one awesome panel, Snake Eyes, because he's Snake Eyes, plucks the RPG launcher out of the hands of the Cobra trooper as they're flying over them in the snow scooter. They make it to where Cobra's next stop was, a nuclear facility next to the pipeline. They are informed there the snakes made off with weapons-grade plutonium. The Joes continue the pursuit and are attacked by a new toy, new enemy, Cobra gliders. Almost at the same time, they get help from the Joe version of those gliders, as well as another damn new toy, character, in the form of Airborne. Though for some reason he's wearing Flash or Grand Slam's outfit here. Snake Eyes, who else, takes out the gliders after Airborne lines them up so they can be shot down with a single RPG, and Airborne joins the team. Meanwhile, Gung Ho gets to shine back at Pumping Station 1 as he takes out the Cobra troops that remain behind there practically single-handedly. Rock'n'Roll takes this opportunity to ask if he could get a date with Gung Ho's model sister. I think maybe I break your face. My sister, she be 9 years old. And let's add Cajun to the number of accents I can't do. Moving on, it seems we don't have enough characters to keep track of yet, so Wild Bill and Zap arrive at Pumping Station 2 to oversee the shutdown of the pipeline so the toxin doesn't get spread any further. The pumping crew seems helpful enough, but then the Battle Bear team arrives and discover his tank tracks going into a shack. It seems the pumping team are not what they seem. As a complete aside, it must be the damn season or something, but every time I want to write pumping in the script, I end up writing freaking pumpkin. Anyway, Zap bursts in to warn Wild Bill, but the so-called workers have beaten him to drawing guns. We see why Wild Bill is such a stereotype though, as he draws his pistol and takes out all three of them. Just then, Dr. Claw's hands step out of the shadows.
For the last freaking time, it's Destro!
Fine. Okay, so it's Destro, and he explains his evil plan. You know, that's 2 weeks in a row we've had guys monologuing their evil scheme. Getting a bit old.
The toxin, though it was real, was just a ruse so the Joes would shut down the pipeline. With it shut down, Destro could put in a probe containing the stolen plutonium. The probe has been sent to Pumping Station 3, because what we really needed here was another freaking location, where it will be collected and whisked away. Destro does tell them that he has the antidote for the toxin, just as Doc comes in and throws a snowball at him, because it's apparently against the Geneva Convention for him to use guns.
Hey, they actually obey the Geneva Convention for once. Sure, it's at the worst possible time, but still, they're doing it.
Doc tackles Destro and has a brief fight with him, but Destro manages to get away. So now the Joes have two problems. They not only have to get the antidote, but they also have to stop the plutonium.
And there's only 2 pages left.
Luckily, Doc has already solved one of the problems. I managed to grab the antidote while I was beating that Cobra bum mercilessly about the soles of his boots with my face.
I love Larry Hama's writing.
Doc then flies over to Pumping Station 3, where Cobra goons are already putting the plutonium into a helicopter. He informs them that they made the pipeline operational again, with toxins in it and all, so they're all infected, and they'd better give up the plutonium if they want the antidote. Being evil, but not stupid, well, not stupid for once the bad guys agree. I'd start bitching about the Geneva Convention again, but back at G.I. Joe base camp, Doc explains he was really just bluffing, and they fell for it. We end the comic with Rock'n'Roll upset over Snowjob telling him Gung Ho's sister was a model. Well, she is a model actually, just a child model. And Snowjob is a bit of a con artist, hence the name. He was gonna trick Rock'n'Roll into paying him money to set up a date. only to become the first person to pay for being allowed to babysit.
So that was the pipeline plot. 24 pages, just 24, to introduce 10 freaking new toys, including 6 new characters. Frankly, that was a bit much.
They crammed so much new stuff in that nothing really got a chance to be explored properly. I'll give credit where it's due though, every new character got their place in the spotlight to look awesome, even though for some it was just one freaking panel, like Airborne, who had the wrong uniform. I would have preferred a maximum of 2, maybe 3 new characters, so they'd have a proper introduction. As it stands, we've only really got Doc and Destro who stood out, and Destro's debut was kinda weird. Why make such a secret of his identity and keep him in the shadows if there is, or very soon will be, a toy of him out there? The plot itself was overly complicated. Cobra released a toxin in the pipeline at Pumping Station 1 to shut down the flow. They head to the nuclear plant, steal the plutonium, and head to Pumping Station 2 to put the plutonium in the pipeline and transport it to Pumping Station freaking 3, where there's a helicopter waiting. Yes, a helicopter. So, here's a thought. You had a freaking helicopter. Why not fly it to the damn nuclear plant and pick up the plutonium there?
Overall, this comic just tries to cram far too much stuff into far too little space, and it suffers from it. The only real reason to read the story is the same reason that it isn't very good, because it introduces so much new stuff that you have to know. Well, that's about all I have to say this week. See you later, everybody!
Changes. Turn and face the strain. Changes. Don't wanna be a richer man. Changes. Turn and face the strain. Changes.
But your bollocks did up good, you did.
We're through with dealing with just the original members of the Joe team, as issue Elf. That's Dutch. That's not actually English, is it? And begins to literally take old familiar faces off the front line and replace them with bland new troops. This is going well today.